Cheering at pro wrestling shows in Japan is back, and 2023 is already shaping up to be a big year in the history of pro res. That's why you should listen to the Emerald Flow Show. From the Royal Road to the Green Mat, Paul and Gerard take you into the world of All Japan Pro Wrestling and Pro Wrestling Noah. Not only do we analyze events, but we examine business, who is getting over, what angles are working or not. Occasionally, we take a look at other Japanese promotions like DDT and Zero One. So if you're looking for more coverage of the world of Japanese wrestling, check out the Emerald Flow Show on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, available on all of your favorite podcast apps.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Welcome to Jumping Bomb Audio.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Jumping Bomb Audio, the #1 show all about the world of Joshi Pro Wrestling. My name is Taylor, and I'm glad to be joined once again by my good friend Kelly. Kelly, happy post-Thanksgiving week.
Happy post-Thanksgiving week. Taylor, are you ready for some scoops?
Sure.
So a little birdie was talking to me, and they said that CM Punk is not coming to Stardom.
I mean, how could you say that? How can you know?
There were discussions. Rossi was talking to Punk, and Punk was like, "Sir, I don't speak Japanese." And talks broke down.
And a guy who doesn't really wear many hats.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it.
No.
Doesn't wear a lot of hats. Are you saying he'll never come to Stardom?
It does not sound very good for his chances to work Stardom, and they could really use him right now.
I mean, they could really use anyone. At the rate they're going, they might not have anyone to wrestle.
Yeah, so it was a huge blow to Stardom to see CM Punk walk out in Chicago in Survivor Series.
Well, I'm glad that I can now put in the episode description CM Punk so that we can get some, we can trick some listeners into listening to our Stardom reviews.
Brother, I know exactly what I'm doing. But you know, the one thing that Stardom won out on is in the Survivor Series post-show media scrum, someone asked Triple H about Julia coming over, and he clearly had no idea who Julia was. So that's good. Because he gave a very long answer that involved him going like, I didn't even know Joshi was called that until like a couple of years ago. This is just wrestling. It's what we do, It's like, I didn't know that had its own name. You hear Joshi, I'm like, oh, okay. And I just really want to work with the people that are like the best of what they do. So if they're good, I'd like to have them come over. So I'm like, okay, you got no idea who this person is.
Add Triple H to the long list of Kelly's great impressions that he does. Could have sworn I was not on the phone, but was recording alongside Triple H himself with that impersonation of Triple H with a Midwest accent, I believe.
Yeah, really, really love my best friend Sean.
Yep. All right, thank you, Triple H, for visiting.
Oh, you're welcome.
Also getting added to the episode description. But
what did you guys first hear about Joshi?
God damn it. Let me get the plugs in. Triple H. I know you've never been here, but I have to do the plugs
I'm sorry.
at the beginning of every episode.
I'm sorry.
Follow us on
I'll
Twitter.
sit back here.
Follow us on Twitter at JBombAudio. You can follow Kelly at Comic Geek Kelly. You can follow me at Taymambo. Subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice. And if that app of choice happens to be Apple Podcasts, we would really love a 5-star rating and review. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can donate to the show at redcircle.com/shows/jumping-bomb-audio. All right, Triple H, are you ready to get into the rest of the show?
Yeah, I'd really like to talk about this Joshi wrestling thing.
Great. Well, we are going to talk in depth about Stardom's Gold Rush show, and then we are going to cover the rest of Stardom, all of Joshi, and do some previews of some big upcoming shows from Stardom, as well as Tokyo Joshi's. And let's get right into it with Stardom Gold Rush. Stardom Gold Rush from November 18th at Edion Osaka Arena in front of 1,033 fans. Triple H, if you could let Kelly back on to let me know his thoughts on the show overall.
Yeah, sure. Kid, come on in here. You gotta talk about the attendance. All right, thanks, Paul. I'll talk to you later. Nice guy, really nice guy. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a low number, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, it feels like a show that was very cursed.
Yeah.
As
Who knows how
multiple
many
things-
people got hurt on the way to the venue? Just fans, like, just got trampled or something and couldn't come in.
I was going to say you could probably put together a pretty killer show just with the people that are injured.
Yeah.
And also including the fact that I know at least one person who was on the show is now also injured because Yuna Mizumori is now, I believe, out.
Yes, she is.
So the inevitable toll of injuries continues. I just want to say, there was all this talk, the replacement of the president of Bushiroad fight and all of that stuff, and discussion of the injury, and there was mention that they're probably not going to do big shows in between tournament shows going forward, which I think in general is a good idea and one that we have advocated for on this very show.
Yeah, no, it was clear they were going to burn out their roster one way or another, and here we are as people are just falling one by one, and it's like, shame no one saw this coming.
And
maybe
it's
we
one
should
of
be
those
the
things,
presidents.
I think we'd work with Rossi very well.
Yeah. We'd just go and take naps. It'd be chill. We'd have a great time.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think that, a big thing is, and this applies to both the Stardom, the people who are already in Stardom, and also the people they brought in, which is a lot of people. I mean, outside of, they obviously haven't brought in a ton of people from Tokyo Joshi, Mina, whatever. Outside of those people, who is the most frequent wrestler, like, in non-Stardom Tokyo Joshi wrestling, and how often each month do they wrestle? What did you say? This is not a question I have the answer to.
Yeah, honestly, it's probably Saori. I feel like she's on every show all the time.
But, like, even if that's true, like, or you take someone like Itsuki Aoki, who wrestles all over the place all the time. I mean, how many times a month is she actually wrestling? Like, 7? Because you think, okay, maybe more than 7. You think you do a couple shows a week. There's 4 weeks in a month, 10, 12 times.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're asking these people to be like, okay, now you're going to wrestle 15 times a month. And they're going to be high end, a lot of the matches on, the mid card of a Sendai Girls show, for example. who I really like, this is not a dig against Sendai Girls, you're not exactly going out there in the second match on the show and like going nuts. Exactly. You're going out, you might be in a 6-person tag, you come in, you do a couple moves, and that's your whole night. Whereas a lot of I know a lot of these Stardom shows might be house shows, but during the 5-star, you're talking all these shows, and a lot of these people are going out and being like, I have to go out, and you have to do something in these 5-star matches. You can't just go out and be like, all right, I'll do a 6-minute match where I don't really do anything. It feels like a very different weekly, monthly in and out. And I think some of that may be related to why these are happening, not that it would be different if these were all like, oh, what a freak accident. It isn't like, okay, they're jumping off this thing, whoops. A number of these seem to be, okay, you're wrestling a lot more and your body just wears down on you.
Yeah, I don't think you just suddenly get a cervical hernia. That's something that happens over time.
So, I mean, hopefully moving forward, they can find a good balance of, doing these shows and keeping everyone healthy because it's best for the wrestlers, it's best for the company, so they're not having to randomly and frequently change shows and change their plans. And there's also a part of me unrelated to, sort of unrelated to that. I think them sort of finding a schedule of, here's a big show, here's a big show, in the way that New Japan does. New Japan is not running a big show every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They sort of have their schedule like, this is a big show, this is a big show. I mean, I would have to look. I haven't really looked at the New Japan schedule in that way, but I would say most of their big shows are 6 weeks apart?
Yeah, I feel like it's safe to say they're about once a month. I mean, you do get the occasional where it's like Destruction or whatever, where it's like, okay, there's like 2 decent sized shows kind of within the same week or whatever. But yeah, they're fairly spread apart.
And we're talking about, Stardom. We're going to talk about Gold Rush here, and then we're going to preview a show that's coming up on December 2nd. So we're talking about really a fairly big show. There's a Korakuen Hall show that's happening as we record, is happening tomorrow. It will have happened by the time this episode comes out. And that's in a 3-week span. We're talking 2 big shows and a fairly sizable Korakuen. I mean, there's a lot going on in Stardom.
Yeah.
But Kelly, what did you think about the show overall as a watchable piece of entertainment?
It was wonderful content that I consumed. No, I thought it was fine. It was a pretty solid show. There were some good matches. Moneyball is always kind of just goofy fun, and it delivered.
It was weird because I was watching the show and halfway through I was sort of like, I don't know if this is a good show, but I am enjoying it. And then I felt like the whole thing sort of went off the rails, and I was like, ugh, okay, maybe I don't like it that much. I did look on Cage Match. It is, in terms of, quote unquote big shows, and I know that they had injuries that changed the look of the card and who was on the card, but it's the lowest rated on Cage Match show in many, many months. Like, I was scrolling through Cage Match. I mean, like, Halloween Night of Terror, whatever that show was called, was worse rated, but that is sort of different. In terms of like the big presented, this is a big show, it was clearly the lowest one in quite a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, but it was like, it was a fairly easy watch, which I give a lot of points to. Because it's like, there's sometimes with these longer shows that have better matches, like objectively better matches, where I'm like, I've been here for like 4.5 hours. I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. Where it's like this was kind of just like in and out for the most part.
Yeah, I think if one of the, I guess I'm sort of spoiling my thoughts here, but if one of the top three would have really hit for me, I probably would have been like, hey, this was a great show. Unfortunately, I thought sort of the worst parts of the card were at the top, which is sort of like, I'm having a good time. And then you're getting later in the show and you're like, I'm having less of a good time now. I'm
I
enjoying
am
this
no
less.
longer having a good time.
Which is sort of like the opposite of what you want to happen, because you want to be like, okay, the show's still going, but yeah, now the matches are getting better. And I just didn't really feel that. But like I said, I think it was mostly, I was entertained, even though I didn't necessarily think it was a great, or, you know, I probably thought it was a good show. It was not a great show.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with that.
Well, let's kick it off. The show started with a match I didn't see, and I'm assuming that Kelly also didn't see, which was the pre-show irregular battle royal, which was
Yeah, I didn't
won
see that.
by,
Hey,
which was
Paul,
won
Paul, did you
by.
see it? Did you see it, Paul? No, I didn't watch it. It's like, what's irregular about it? I don't get it. These kids, I don't get this.
Oh, he's a he's a old man yelling at cloud type. The irregular battle royal was won by Billy Kendeth, also a parentheses Fukigen Death. Lots of parentheses here. Billy Kendeth, who is Fukigen Death, um, parentheses Kiri Yoniyama, defeated Lady C, Micah, Megan Bain, Mina Shirakawa, Miyu Amasaki, and Yuna Mizumori in 14 minutes and 44 seconds after she eliminated Miyu Amasaki to win. That was the pre-show match, but the first match proper on the show was the first of two Moneyball tournament semi-final matches. Moneyball is back, and it was the Stars trio of Hanan, Hazuki, and Saya Ida defeating the God's Eye team of Amisore, Konami, and Hanako, joined by Hanako, in 10 minutes and 32 seconds. Kelly, your thoughts on the first match here?
When are they just gonna let Hanako join God's Eye? Like, she works well with them. She works good as a pin eater. Just let her on the team. Come on, guys. Stop keeping her at arm's length. Just let Hanako be your friend. Overall, fine match. Decent opener. I went 3.25. I enjoyed it.
I also thought it was fine. It feels like there's a lot of unit movement that sort of everyone is waiting to happen that hasn't happened yet. Um, a lot of people not in units who feel like they should be put in units at some point or should have already been put in a unit. But we'll have to see. The one thing I really noticed on this show was, um, I'm not an expert on who makes all the gear for uh, Stardom wrestlers. I'm assuming they use a similar source, and I'm assuming they use a similar source because a lot of this gear is starting to look really similar to each other.
Yeah.
Um, Hanako's gear here really looked sort of like an um, old Momo fit, as the kids
Oh
would
yeah, I
say.
could see that. Yeah.
And the thing that really threw me off later in the show was, um, I don't remember if it was during the next semifinal match or during the finals, but I was watching the show and something was happening, and it was pitched in the way where I was like, wait a minute. Utami is not in this match. She's not in this match. No. But I was like looking and I was like, but that's Utami's gear. And then the person like turned around or looked up or something. And I was like, no. That's my Sakurai. I was like, they have identical gear. Like the gear looks the same to me. And it really threw me for a second where I was like, oh, yeah, a lot of this gear is looking very. I don't know. There's a lot of like main event samey gear to me. It feels like the people who sort of get out of that are the people who aren't being pushed. Like Saida looks different. Hazuki looks different. Yuna looks different, but it feels like a lot of the gear is being homogenized in a weird way that I sort of don't enjoy because I like people having sort of
Yeah,
unique
no, I can agree with that.
gear that makes them stand out. Anyway, that was my main thought on the match. I think these Moneyball, well, I was thinking at the time, a thought that maybe I don't have now, thinking, oh, these people are probably saving themselves because half of these people are going to have another match on the show.
Exactly. Yeah. And a ladder match at that.
It's a thing maybe now I don't think, having seen the final, which I thought was sort of like whatever,
Just a
but
dumb, goofy match.
it was sort of in the moment I'm like, okay, you're having another match, like you're not going to go out here and, go nuts.
Yeah.
Speaking of the second semifinal match in the Moneyball, the second annual Moneyball tournament, the Donna Del Mundo trio of Julia, Mai Sakurai, and Tekla defeating the Oedo Tai trio of Momo Watanabe, Natsuko Tora, and Ruaka in 9 minutes and 28 seconds. Kelly, I had the same exact thoughts pretty much on this match as the previous one. Perfectly acceptable wrestling was my note. I did like Mai Sakurai. I do like Mai Sakurai slapping people with the money.
Yep.
Um, I think that's a fun bit. Other than that, really had no thoughts about this.
I really love this Donna Del Mundo trio. I think they're so much fun together, and they got what I a really fun match out of my least favorite Widow Tai trio. Like I went 3.5 on this. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I went into it expecting to not care for it much. So you know what? I was pleasantly surprised.
The next match was our first title match of the evening for the high speed title. New champion May Sierra successfully defending her title against Momoko Hanazono in 7 minutes and 18 seconds. I thought that this match was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty good bridge. We sort of had the Azumi serious high speed rain, then went into the Saki goofier sort of um, high speed matches. This felt sort of like a mix as you're sort of pulling out away from Saki again uh, to sort of bring a bit of seriousness. They had sort of the classic opening moments of scrambling around the ring, but also had Momika bringing out the bubble machine. Uh, although it felt weird that May had to sort of choke on bubbles that weren't being shot at her. Uh, I found that sort of odd, but I like this. It didn't blow me away in any way. Um, I thought it was pretty solid work. I thought the end, right near the end, they sort of picked it up to get to the finish. So I was in the sort of 3.5, maybe very low 3 3/4 range. I just thought it was fun and thought it was the first really good match on the show.
Yeah, I ended up at 3.5 on this one. I think it might actually be my favorite Hanazono match. I'm not a huge fan of hers. I think she's solid enough, but kind of ends up relying too much on her various toys. And we didn't get a ton of that here, which was good. And Macier is great. So yeah, I thought these two had a fun match, and 7:18. I think that's the perfect kind of amount of time for a high speed title match. So yeah, this was a pretty good title match. It's nice to have the high speed title kind of back rather than the doldrums of the Saki era.
Kelly revealing he does not live in the Hana Zone with
Mm-mm.
Momoko Hanazono.
Not to be confused with the Hana Zones. which is the Hanazono and Zones fan club.
The next match was a three-way match. Azumi defeating Starlight Kid and Suzu Suzuki in 10 minutes and 15 seconds. Kelly, very interested to hear what you thought about this match. And then I have a little question and a bet for you.
Okay. I feel bad for Suzu that she got demoted from like the title match to just being in this random three-way. Like that's kind of fucked up. And she didn't even win the three-way. Like what the hell? I don't know. I thought the match was good. Like I went 4 stars and almost see that as a disappointment because I think these three could go out there and have a killer match. And yeah, it was very good. Obviously, I went 4 stars, but I think these three could go out there and do 4 3/4. But I also have to wonder now that I'm thinking about this and thinking about how the main event was kind of more just goofy comedy than anything. I wonder if they're being told like, "Hey, take it easy out there. We don't need any more injuries. So slow it down, grab a hold." Because that wouldn't be the worst thing. So, but yeah, overall solid match. What did you think of it?
I enjoyed it. I was very similar to you. I went 3 3/4. It sort of was less than I was expecting, but not surprising considering it was sort of halfway up the card. And I think the last match prior to sort of the business end of the card, if you think of it that way. I was also very shocked because I went into the match thinking, okay, Suzu's very clearly going to win. She's going to have this title match, keep her strong, have her win over one of these two, probably Azumi. So I was sort of shocked at the end. Highlight of the match really was Azumi going for the pin on Suzu. She was like sitting on her chest and Starlight Kid running from the other side and like drop kicking her into another dimension. It was like Azumi clearly couldn't see when it was going to come and just got blasted and like yeeted off the pin, which I really loved. But the question I had, and I had it even before the match started, and I don't know if you'll agree or disagree with me, but then I have a bet, an over-under bet.
Okay.
Is the reason that Starlight Kid has this new mask with the hair now showing. And my question is, have they planned this to sort of mentally start to prepare people for Starlight Kid to lose the mask?
Yes, I think that's the case. Because initially I thought it was because of how hot it gets in the summer, and that would just be like a cooler mask. But now that she's still wearing it, I think you're onto something in that it's kind of a half step to her eventually losing the mask.
All right, my follow-up bet over under, and I've debated on sort of where to put this marker, but I will say over under Starlight Kid loses the mask before, I guess would be the under, or after the 2025 5-star Grand Prix.
Oh, Jesus. I'm going to say before. Because that's a full year. And if we're starting
I mean, it's almost 2 years. 2025 is in 2 years.
Yeah, if we're prepping people for her to lose the mask now, I feel like it's going to happen within the next calendar year.
So you're saying by the end of 2024 it's going to happen?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I just think things move so slowly
That's true.
But it could be fast. I'm like, I don't know, maybe Azumi defeated Starlight Kid here so they could, Because I would think who's going to take it? It would have to be Azumi, right?
Probably, most likely, yeah. Unless it ends up being a Dragon Gate style uh, unit versus unit cage match where the loser loses their hair or mask. But even then, it could be Azumi and Starlight Kid in the final bit of that match or something.
Yeah, it just felt to me like I was looking at it and I was like, I think that's why. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe
actually, Rossi,
people.
take that idea. Queen's Quest versus Wado Tai, Dead or Alive cage match. Let's go.
They have done a lot of good cage matches in Stardom, so
Yeah, just go
I'd
full
be
Dead or
excited.
Alive, and with do the flags, have the people on the outside with the fucking rocket things that shoot out volleyballs at people. Like, just go all the way.
Well, I guess we'll have to see. Put a marker in that one, and we'll see if we're right or wrong. But the next match was a UWF rules match. Shuri defeating the Scandinavian Hurricane, which is, I guess, her official Stardom name, in, shockingly, 10 minutes and 15 seconds. Two matches with the exact same time back to back. So
That's
if you
wild.
said what if you said, wow, that last match, that was perfectly paced, you got a double treat here with the same. Um, Kelly, I have a lot to say about this match, so I'll let you go first.
Okay. I based on what I've seen online, and I don't know what you're about to say. I think I might be the only person that liked this match. I don't know why. It it just worked for me. A lot of stiff strikes from both women. I thought the Scandinavian Hurricane worked well in this style and kind of felt like she belonged in there with Siri. And I liked it a lot. I went 4 stars.
Wow, very interesting. Look, I didn't hate it. I'll get that out of the way first. I will say this, and I was really thinking this during the match. I really like UWF style. I've watched a lot of it, UWF, UWFI rules. There's a whole, I think I've talked about this on the show before. There's a whole series, like a TV show on Amazon Prime, or there was a few years ago, of, I believe, UWFI stuff um, that has like English commentary on it and is great. And I highly recommend everyone, if you have really any interest in the style, to go and watch those episodes. I think it's like 25 episodes or something, and the episodes are 30 minutes long or something. So it's very easy to get through. The thing with UWF rules is that, and when you're talking about like those UWFI matches that are all really good, but look, I say they're all really good. Some of them are not good. Some of them are slightly boring, because that's sort of the way that, if you're treating it like it is a quote unquote shoot fight, sometimes shoot fights are boring.
Really boring.
If you ever watch UFC, some of those matches some of those fights, whatever they call them, are sometimes not that interesting, because that's sort of the way it works. But that means everyone works together to sort of create a reality of, we are doing shoot fights, even though these are not actual shoot fights. But everyone works together, and you say, okay, that match wasn't interesting, but you're sort of in the world. And then when you get to the moment of the main event, or a match that's really good, or a match that has a big backstory of, Gary Albright's coming in and he's never lost, and, who's going to be able to beat him, then it works in your favor. And then all of a sudden you can get these very exciting moments, these exciting matches where you're like, yeah, this is super exciting. This is really great. Even though in your mind, okay, this isn't actually, they're not actually fighting. This is like wrestling, but it is not wrestling. The thing that sort of bugs me most, and it happened a lot in this match, is sort of the match starts. They come out, they're like doing these sort of, oh, I'm trying for a kick, you're trying for a kick. Oh, we're moving away, we're sort of doing some hand fighting. And then someone inevitably breaks out a move that you would never, ever see in an actual fight in any situation. In this match, it was the Scandinavian Hurricane doing a head scissors. 999 times out of 1,000, you are not seeing a head scissors in a, MMA, shoot fight, whatever you want to call it. And it becomes a thing where it feels like, and it's felt in the last few UWF rules matches, that they sort of get to a point where they're like, well, we've like done the grappling, so let's just sort of do a wrestling match to end here. And the minute it's a wrestling match, my mind, at least speaking just for myself, my mind goes, oh, this isn't actually a shoot fight, which obviously I know it's not. This isn't a shoot fight. It's just a wrestling match with stupid rules. Like, if I wanted to see you do a fireman's carry, a rolling fireman's carry, just do a wrestling match then. Don't do UWF rules. There's no reason for it because you're just doing wrestling. You're not doing, proto shoot fighting. I think that's the thing that sort of throws me off always about these matches is it just eventually most of them turn into, oh, well, I've done the 2 or 3 things I sort of know about, MMA. Okay, I'll just do a wrestling match at the end, and that's how we'll, and then I'll kick you in the head, and that will be the knockout finish because it's a UWF rules match.
Yeah.
Where it just always, it breaks your suspense in such a way where you're like, why is this the thing? And I get the whole thing, Shuri, obviously, in UFC, but there's also no guarantee that someone being in, have obviously sure very talented in MMA, clearly, but being talented in MMA does not guarantee you're a great UWF fighter, just as being a great UWF person doesn't mean you'll be any good at MMA, as they proved many, many times over with a lot of those UWF guys who stunk when they did MMA. Like, you just have to have the mentality of we are in the reality of a shoot fight. We are not in the reality of wrestling. And there's a lot in the reality of wrestling that I think people don't, just because it happens all the time, that people don't think about as why would any human being ever do this if they're in a shoot fight? The obvious one is like running the ropes. Why is anyone ever running the ropes? You would never in a shoot fight sit on the ground and say, kick me as hard as you can. That's a thing you can do in wrestling because in the reality of wrestling, it's a thing that's like, I'm tough and I'm going to prove to you that you don't affect me. If a UFC guy or girl sat in the middle of a ring in a UFC fight and said, I'll put my hands down and you can kick me as hard as you want, I guarantee 9 out of 10 times that person is getting knocked out with one kick. Because the person's not going to go, okay, I'll kick you right in the back. They're going, great, I'll kick you in the head and I'll knock you out. It's just sort of that thing where I know there are a lot of people, and Kelly, you sort of mentioned this before, a lot of people who have been like, oh, these UWF, rules, I don't want them, I don't like them. There's this idea that the president who just left was sort of the proponent of them and we'll be getting rid of them. And I just think it's one of those things where it's just not being presented well in the way that they're doing it in Stardom. I actually like the idea of doing these sort of things as a fun change of pace, as something different. You can sort of bring in people like the Scandinavian Hurricane who are sort of very different presentation wise than a lot of, very different than a Megan Bain or a Mariah May in presentation and sort of be like, oh, this is an interesting piece of wrestling that breaks up some of these sort of more Stardom, presented matches. So I think it's a good idea. I just think they haven't really gotten into the thing where it's like, this is UWF rules and we're doing it. It just most of the time feels like we're doing a wrestling match and calling it UWF rules so that we can, we don't have to do a pin and we can just do a flash knockout.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And I've been saying for a long time on this show that Siri should probably win matches with flash knockouts, like even just outside of this. I've been a big proponent of that. Like, use her striking ability, like make that something that people should be afraid of. But yeah, I do agree with you that these matches don't feel very much like UWF, but like with this match, I think for the most part I got a lot of good. It was some grappling and some hard hitting strikes, and that's kind of just what I wanted. So while it wasn't fully in the style, I was like, well, it was good enough. So that's why I liked it to the level that I did. And I'm starting to really think that even though she was, legit in UFC and stuff, Siri might just not be very good at this style of wrestling. Maybe it's because she's got experience in the real thing and she's just like, well, even if it were fake, or, even if it were like the shoot, I still wouldn't do it this way. So maybe she's just too in her own head about it, but who knows. And what you were talking about reminded me, did you ever watch any of the WXW Ambition tournaments?
I don't think I watch Ambition. I did watch years ago. I did watch some WXW, but I was mostly like dropping in. But I do know about the tournament. Um, I maybe watched 1 year. Maybe.
You reminded me of the time that A Kid hit a Spanish Fly in the main event of the tournament, which is like UWF rules, and everyone was kind of like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to, if you're a wrestler, to get in the ring and say, okay, you have to turn off all your ideas that you've been trained about wrestling, which is like you probably shouldn't sit on the mat like rolling around for 7 minutes because people are going to be bored. But it's like that's what happens. Sometimes you go down for a submission and you're fighting and you're, you know, jostling, and it can be exciting. Kelly, when you and I were in Japan in 2019, we went to that um, hard
Hard
hit
hit show.
that hard hit show, and they had an actual like grappling exhibition uh, between two guys. It was an actual shoot like there was no striking, but it was like really exciting. I remember
Yeah,
that match because it was like two guys on the mat fighting for position, like countering out of stuff, being able to reverse things like naturally in the flow of, rolling around, trying for submission, trying for this. It was like legitimately, I was like, this is thrilling after thinking, okay, this is going to be a thing where they, go down and they sort of lay on top of each other for 5 minutes and it's going to be boring. It was really thrilling, but I think, obviously they were doing it for real, which is a lot easier. And I think some of the stuff with Shuri maybe, and is the case with a lot of people who are good at MMA, is that you come to wrestling and you're like, well, if I was actually fighting, I would just go and, try and knock you out in 2 seconds, but I can't do that. So then all of a sudden you're like, okay, what do I do? What should I do here? I could do a wrestling move. And then it, again, just turns into wrestling.
yeah, I could see that being the part of it where she's like, I don't want to like flashback to UFC and murder you on accident.
The semi-main event of this show was for the Wonder of Stardom title match. And Kelly, I had just recently been talking to someone who has been going through Stardom's 2023, watching some of the best matches from the year. And I mentioned that Stardom had really started to move away, at least certainly on the big shows, from time limit draws.
Yeah.
So, much to my surprise, Mirai and Sayori Ano going to a 30-minute time limit draw. Kelly, your thoughts?
Real boring. But Sari bumped like a maniac for Mirai, so that was really the only real highlight of the match for me. Sari bumped well enough to get a 3-star out of this. Phone, shut up. I'm not talking about Siri, goddammit. Sayori, not Siri. No, God, fuck. All right. I'm going to stop talking. 3 stars.
It felt like a 20-minute match with 10 minutes of 1-minute finishing sequences.
Yeah,
Like
kind of.
the Clue movie, how at the end they're like, it could have ended like this, or it could have ended like this. That's what it felt like for this match, where it's like they could have ended the match doing this. They could have ended the match doing this. But none of them are the actual ending, because we're going, and I mean, it's one of those things where the minute they made the call for, I don't even remember what it was, I was like, it's a time limit draw. It just feels like when the thing won't end and then all of a sudden they're doing time calls, you're like, okay, it's either not going to end or Mirai's going to win it in like 29:57 or something, which is as good as a time limit draw. I mean, they worked hard, but especially as you mentioned, Sayori taking a couple of those clothesline bumps like directly on her head. Um, it just felt very long. It felt very, very long.
It felt so
And
long.
there's just something about it. I don't know if it's that, she's not really officially on the roster, even though she spends a lot of time there. It's another Sayori match near the top of the card that just feels like the crowd did not care. It felt like they were clapping at the end out of sort of obligation. Also could be that it was 1,000 people in a larger venue, and a lot of the excitement might have gotten sucked up by the echoes. But it just felt like sort of polite claps for a 30-minute match. Sayori's not winning. I would have put her chances before the match at about 2%. And so it's just this endless, like, Mirai hits, and then it felt for a long time like Mirai hits this, Sayori kicks out. Mirai tries this, Sayori kicks out. What about this one? She kicks out. She hits her with another clothesline kick out. How
Yeah, it
about
really felt like they went
this?
to the closing sequence like way too early, and they're like, shit, well, we gotta just keep it going.
And it was just like an endless barrage of Sayori. I mean, I guess it made Sayori look good that she kicked out of like 18 different things. Um, but it's just, I mean, it's like, well, Sayori, I don't know what's going on backstage if she's saying, oh, I can't lose. But if she can't lose, then don't do the match.
That's not gonna work for me, brother.
um, and I was like, it just is very draining to me. Um, like I would go like 3 and I don't know. I'd probably be slightly higher than you, like 3.5, maybe 3.25. But it just felt, and again, it was one of these weird things where I was enjoying myself. Then we had the UWF rules match, which I didn't hate, but sort of annoyed me. Um, I had this match that, again, I didn't hate, but annoyed me a little bit more. So just like a weird end, and then we'll get to the main event, which I thought was just sort of nothing. Uh, but yeah, just very, very bizarre, and a thing where to me, it feels like Mirai at this point still needs to go out and be like, here's a challenger, and I put you down, and I'm showing that I am, you know, a champion. I'm a worthy champion, and I'm beating you, and I'll show all of you that I'm actually the top of this company. And her going to a time limit draw feels like, well, the people who, are maybe more critical, maybe they're not wrong. Uh, but anyway, the
That's
main
from our
event.
booking meetings with Rossi, where we're just like, maybe we're not wrong. And he's like, I don't know. Let me think about it over this nap. I'm like, all right, Rossi.
The main event, the Artist of Stardom title Moneyball tournament final match. Say that 5 times fast. Donna Del Mundo trio, the Donna Del Mundo trio of Julia, Mai Sakurai, and Tekla, defeating the Stars trio of Hanan, Hazuki, and Saya Ida in 10 minutes and 27 seconds. Kelly, thoughts?
This was fucking stupid, and I loved it for it. What a dumb, stupid match. You have Stars out there in their MC Hammer pants. You have the Stars team opening that one box only to have just a bunch of powder drop all over them. That was one of the funniest things I've seen in a long time. I laughed out loud at it. It was so great. Just what Tony Khan's dream pile coming out of the box all over him. That was hilarious. Uh I love the treasure chest that they got. That it was not the money ball. It was something more sturdy than it was last year. And they made sure it was going to be higher up so it wouldn't get smacked with a ladder. And the fucking treasure chest is just full of Christmas tree ornaments for some reason. Like it wasn't even the gold coins from last year. It was just Christmas tree ornaments for some reason. Uh Tekla got the win. That was cool, even though it was this stupid match. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. I went 3 3/4.
I just have to say that I think the Moneyball tournament as a concept maybe should be retired.
Yeah, it can go away. We never need to do this again.
I mean, the most notable thing about the first one was the comedy of the ball breaking open accidentally. That's the only thing I remember
Yeah.
from last year, was the thing not going properly. And this one, I mean, out of another box came, I don't even know what they were, donuts or something? Um, like brown
Yeah,
donut. What were
I think
those?
those were fuck, those were some I'm pretty sure those were some kind of like nut or something. Cuz I'm pretty sure Big Japan had a match that involved whatever the fuck those things were. And they're like kind of like just like covered in burrs almost. It was like someone's
Um,
specific like hometown themed death match. So I assume it's something related to Osaka. So it's like some kind of Osaka nut or something.
Osaka nut. Uh, and I think I was just so beaten down from the previous match that I just sort of watched this in a stupor and then it was just over. I was sort of
Yeah.
like, oh, they had ladders, but really for no purpose other than to put one ladder up in the middle and climb it. Um,
Which
I
kind of
don't
goes
know.
more to my theory of they're telling everyone, hey, take it easy.
Hey, we booked you in a ladder match, but please don't do any bumps with the ladders. Please.
Yeah.
Just use them to climb. They just had a pre-show or a pre-match agreement. Hey, let's not do anything with the ladders. And I don't know, just feels all meaningless at the end and whatever. But you can see what I mean. Just sort of like a 3-match stretch of Kelly. You liked the matches more than I did, but a 3-match stretch of sort of like what's happening here.
Yeah.
Very confusing way to end a show. Just thinking, what's going on? instead of
A
like,
3-match
hey,
stretch, especially where one of those three dwarfs the others are in length, where it's just like the 30 minutes of boringness surrounded by, for you, 10 minutes of you being like, well, this isn't right. And then also the other 10 minutes of, well, this is fucking bizarre and meaningless.
being like, well, this isn't right, but in a different way.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was Stardom's Gold Rush show. Uh, what else has been going on in the last 2 weeks of Joshi? Stardom also had their New Blood West 1 show, the newest Stardom rookie Yuzuki debuting in defeat to Momo Watanabe. Hanan and May Sierra went to a time limit draw. Dun da da. They're back, baby.
But I will
And
say that match did rock.
yes, and at least it wasn't a 30-minute time limit draw.
Yeah. Yeah, the 10-minute or whatever, that's fine. That was all right. I really liked how it seems like Hanan and May Sierra hate each other, and we don't know why, and it's like, that's great. I love just, for whatever reason, these two have beef, and they're going to beat the shit out of each other.
And the main event of the show, Rina retaining her Future of Stardom title against Hanako in the main event there. In SEAdLINNG, they had a show on November 17th. The unlikely duo of Arisa Nakajima and Sari defeating Hiroya Matsumoto and Riko Kaiju. That will be important in a few weeks. Oz had a show on the 23rd. Itsuki Aoki retaining the Pioneer title, which is Oz's three-way title over Kyoko Inoue and Saori No. Not Syria, no. In Tokyo Joshi, they had a show on the 19th. The Mountaintop, the big news there. Himawari and Wakana Uehara advancing to the finals of the Next Generation tournament, and Max the Impaler retained their international princess title over Shoko Nakajima. In Wave, their two tournaments, the DualShock Tag Tournament and the Regina de Wave tournament, continued. We'll talk about that more in the upcoming shows. Kelly, what else has been happening in the world of Joshi?
Over at Choco Pro / Gato Move, we had their show Rivals on the 20th. Main event was an Asia Dream tag title match between Best Bros and CDK. That's Best Bros successfully retain their belts. Solid enough match, but I don't know. I've seen these two teams have better matches. Still worth watching. Then over in Prominence on November 15th, the main event had Vaney defeating Risa Serra, which is a match you don't really see every day. So that was a interesting, fun matchup.
What is coming up in Joshi? Well, when this episode is released tomorrow, this show will have already happened, but Stardom has a Korakuen Hall show on the 28th, headlined by the mini World of Stardom tournament, which will find the other challenger who will challenge Suzu or whoever has the certificate later in December. That tournament will see Mina Shirakawa face off against Momo Watanabe and Maika face off against Ami Sourei. The winner of those two matches will be in the main event to determine the tournament winners. Kelly, who do you think advances and who do you think wins it all?
Well, it's got to be Maika, right?
Yeah,
it's the only one that, like, in out of these four that makes any sort of sense in having any sort of narrative going into the match. I mean, you just had those two have their falling out or whatever it was that happened. So yeah, it's got to be Maika. If it's not, I will be legitimately shocked.
I thought you were going to say eat your hat.
I will
Also-
never say I'm going to eat a hat, because then I will have to eat that hat.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. I also am the same. Also on the show, Utami and Saya Kamatani are returning in a 6-person match, Utami Saya and Azumi taking on Suzu Suzuki, Mai Sierra, and Megan Bayne. That should be good as well. But then the next big Stardom show on December 2nd, Stardom Winter Challenge, will be happening. Matches on that show. Nanae Takahashi will take on the Scandinavian Hurricane in a UWF rules match.
Oh, a passion injection UWF match? Be still my heart.
Mai Sierra will defend her high-speed title against Tekla. That should be a good match. Julia will defend the Strong Women's Championship, the New Japan Strong Women's Championship, against Azumi. Suzu Suzuki will put her World of Stardom certificate on the line against Hazuki. And may not be the main event, but it was listed at the top of the page. Micah and Megan Bayne will face currently they're a mystery team, but a team to be announced later to determine the new Goddess of Stardom champions. Kelly, a pretty, to my eye, a pretty fun looking show.
Yeah, I'm into this show. Suzuki versus Hazuki should be great. Julia versus Azumi should be great. Mai Sierra versus Thekla should be great. That UWF match is going to happen. And the Goddesses match could be cool, depending on who the X's are. I mean, the X's could always be like the Masked Crows and just end up being you and Nanae Takahashi, and I'd be real upset about that. But odds are looking good on this one, that it should be a good show.
The X's are going to be your favorite tag team of Ruaka and Natsuko Tora.
I'm trying to debate whether I would prefer that team or Nanae and you. Because at
Nanae
least
just comes out and says, I won a UWF rules match. I'm
Yeah.
making this tag team match a UWF rules match.
tag team match player. Yeah, because at least Ruaka and Natsuko, like that could be just really bad, but like in a fun way then. Whereas I just think you and Nanae are just the most boring team to ever team together. So yeah, I think I'd rather have the worst team than the boring team.
All right. Well, we'll have to wait and see. But what else is going on in Joshi? Tokyo Joshi has a December Korakuen Hall show on December 1st. We are TJPW. That show will kick off Hyper Misao and Mihiro Kiryu versus Yuki Aino and Raku. Juria Nagano, Shino Suzuki.
Oh, Shino. Sorry, I was thinking
Kelly,
about Viva La
oh
Bam
gosh.
again.
And Haru Kazushiro will take on Kaya Toribami, Toga, and Runa Okubo. Yuki Kamafuku will go one-on-one with the visiting Viva Van. The Next Generation tournament will come to an end. The final Himawari will take on Wakana Uehara. The Princess Tag Team titles will be on the line. The people's voices have been heard. The champions, Free Wi-Fi, Hikari Noah, and Nao Kakuta will face off against the imposing Palm Paler duo of Max the Impaler and Palm Harajuku. Kelly, do we see new tag champions?
I don't think we do, because I'm thinking they're going to want to avoid another double champion situation. But man, we can dream. This is a match of the year contender right there. I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited.
I have a feeling the crowd is gonna be hot for that one.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then the main event of the show is a 10th anniversary special 10-woman tag match Miyu Yamashita, Shoko Nakajima, Yuka Sakazaki, Rika Tatsumi, and Mizuki will take on Miyu Watanabe, Yuki Arai, Suzume, Moka Miyamoto, and Arisu Endo. That is a match I'm very excited for. Gives me a lot of thoughts of some of the classic Dragon Gate veteran versus rookie matches they've had over the years and how good some of those have been. And I think this one could be very good.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this generational clash.
And then on December 6th will be the Yuka Sakazaki graduation special. It will be her final show in Tokyo Joshi, at least for the time being. Nothing announced for that show yet, except Yuka Sakazaki will be in a singles match against a mystery opponent. So we will have to wait and see what happens there, but should be a good one. And a big graduation for Tokyo Joshi as well. Elsewhere, Wave, as I mentioned, the tournaments. The Regina de Wave tournament will come to the finals as Yuki Miyazaki will take on Ayame Sasamura, and Itsuki Aoki and Ikuto Hidaka will put their tag titles on the line against Saki and Risa Sera. That show happening on the usual first of the month Wave show on December 1st. So that is everything that is happening. Next time we come to you, I'm happy to say it will be our Joshi year in review show, our classic year in review show. We'll be talking all the awards, matches of the year, all that good stuff. And I am happy to say, after I thought of it last episode, we will be doing, at least Kelly and I will be doing, the Joshi Fantasy League. I have been prepping the rules
Oh, hell yeah.
and regulations for the Joshi Fantasy League, which I will announce next episode. We will draft our picks and we will track them throughout 2024 to see whether who's smarter, me or Kelly, because that is what it will determine.
Yep.
Picking Joshi wrestlers. So that is coming up. Kelly, do you have anything to say? I realized after we stopped recording last episode that I very rudely did not give you your usual final thoughts segment. So I wanted to make sure to turn the floor over to you at the end of the episode for that.
I feel like I really should have prepared something outrageous to talk about now then. What we got? I'm very excited. As we're recording 2 days from now, I'll be able to see Godzilla -1, which is the new Godzilla movie, and I am so excited, and I cannot wait. Just 2 days. That's going to be a great time. I did watch an interesting movie. I know we've talked about them before, but Vinegar Syndrome put out a Australian movie that is a mockumentary about this Japanese show called Top Knot Detective. And this documentary seems so real. You forget half the time you're watching it that this show never existed and none of these people are real. It's a very fun documentary, fake documentary. They even shot a lot of footage that looks as though it's from like an late 80s, early 90s Japanese TV show. Just about a wacky samurai detective. So that is definitely worth a watch if any of that sounds interesting at all to you. What else? What else we got? The Curse. Have you watched The Curse at all?
I am. Well, I believe I'm one. Did they have an episode on Friday?
I guess they did. Someone was telling me about it, and I didn't realize that was going to happen. I thought they dropped it early on Thursday.
I was watching. Well, I have seen the first 2 episodes of The Curse.
Same.
Yes. Yes. Pretty strange.
Yeah, I love it. Just the scene with the guy talking about his DUI was one of the most uncomfortable moments on TV I've ever seen.
Certainly a very specific energy. I had someone be like, should I watch it? And I was sort of like, did you like these three things? And they were like, no. I think they said no to all three. And I was like, yep, don't watch it. I was like, that's easy. Yeah, but there's one I have seen, The Curse.
Nice. And
Well,
then, what else? What else? What other TV are you watching? Let's do a quick TV wrap up.
You want to
what
do
are you
a whole
watching these
TV?
days?
I've been watching. Have you watched the Scott Pilgrim
Yes, I did watch it.
cartoon? Very interesting. I won't say more than that, but and I haven't finished. I'm only a couple episodes in, but very interesting. I'll say that.
Yes, I thought it wrapped up really well. I enjoyed the last couple episodes quite a bit. It feels similar to the rebuild of Evangelion movies.
Sure. Now we're back in my territory of things I haven't seen.
Oh, and I've been watching the Monarch show on Apple Plus, and that is perfectly fine. And like all of the MonsterVerse movies is really only good when the monsters are on the screen.
Well, I will cut in to say this: if you've listened to this moment in time on the episode, you are a super fan. So I will say that this week we switched our podcast host, not by choice. We were forced to switch. So if you have any notes on the recording, if it sounds very strange, if something happens in the middle of it, let us know, because we don't want that to happen. And we're using a new thing that we've never used before. So if something goes wrong, we'll fix it next time.
Yeah. Yeah, we were kind of thrown into just, oh, well, this is a different thing we have to do now, because I mentioned this, like I know we talked about this. I don't remember if we talked about it on the show or not. It's weirdly harder to podcast now than it was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, there's too much. I just want a place that's going to record my voice and then give me that file. That's all I want.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like, I don't know, a lot of weird, like, I don't need all this stuff about being able to edit on the fly and all of this garbage. I just want a recording.
Exactly.
But anyway, that is all for us for this episode. As I mentioned, next episode we will be back with our year in review show. So until then, for Kelly, I am Taylor saying farewell and talk to you next time.
Paul says goodbye too. Hope you guys all have a good time, and I'm gonna learn more about Joshi, and that Julia girl sounds pretty cool, so maybe I'll invite her over to the performance center so she can tear her quads.
Hello there, my name's Neil David, and I'm the host of Eurograps Express, the podcast exclusively dedicated to the wrestling of Europe. If it's wrestling and it happens in Europe and it's good, we talk about it. Whether it's Rev Pro, Progress, WXW, Passion Pro, Pro Wrestling Chaos, Pro Wrestling North, we don't care, we talk about them all. If it's good and it's exciting, I want to share it with you. We're on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Check us out on the feed. Check us out on Twitter at EuroGrapsEXP. And join us for chat about European wrestling and a little bit of chat about cheese. Hopefully see you there.